meeting via Zoom. The agenda for Mashpee Selectmen, Monday, January 24th, 2022, Wacoit Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. Broadcast live on local channel 18. Public call-in numbers 508-539-1449. Streamed live on Town Mashpee website, www.mashpeema.gov/channel18. We will start this evening meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I'd like to have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Approval of the following: Monday, January 10th, 2022, regular session and executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
What's that?
Roll call, please. John?
John?
David? No. Andrew?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, it's 6:32. Got 2 more minutes. We can start. Make sure everybody's in. Is there any public comment? Public comment.
Is there anybody for public comments available? There are no reported public comments, Madam Chair, and Selectman Whedon is dialing in.
Thank you. And Andrew, would you like to read the public hearing?
Sure. Pursuant to Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, Board of Selectmen acting as the local licensing authority for the town of Mashpee will conduct a public hearing on the application of Commons Convenience Inc. for transfer of the annual all wine and malt beverage and seasonal all alcoholic beverage package store licenses to MPG Corporation DBA Rapid Refill. The hearing will be held virtually on Monday, January 24th, 2022 at 6:35 p.m. The public may participate by calling 508-539-1449. Please be advised the following: it's a virtual remote meeting, broadcast live, local cable channel 18, calling comment number 508-539-1449, stream live on the Mashpee Town website, www.mashpeemass.gov, channel 18.
Thank you, Andrew. And who is here for this hearing?
I'm Louis Cassis. I'm the attorney for the applicant.
Okay, nice to meet you, Mr. Cassis.
I think Peter Garrett is with me, and the manager is also on the line, I believe.
And the manager is?
Dan, are you here? Dan Fortunato.
Fortunato, okay. Okay, gentlemen, you want to start?
Thank you for hearing us. My name is Louis Cassis. I represent MPG Corporation. And before you is an application for the transfer of 2 licenses. One an annual wine and malt license. The other is seasonal all alcoholic license. And it's transfer from Commonwealth Convenience to MPG. MPG presently operates 3 other gas station convenience stores in Westford, Falmouth, and Taunton. This was actually a sublease years ago from MPG to Common Convenience, and they're retaking the license. The application shows it's going to be the exact same operation as it was before. There'll be really no change in anything other than a change of ownership. I have Peter Garrett on the line, who's the owner, and can answer any specific questions about the transfer.
Sure. I'm going to start. Tom, do you have any questions?
No, not that I can think of off the top of my head. Nothing specific.
Okay, John?
Are they in compliance with the signs that we had discussed previously?
I'm sorry,
Could you repeat that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had asked if they were in compliance with the signage requirements that we had asked to be reinforced. Has that happened, or are there any sign issues on the properties?
Who would like
Do
to
you know the
speak?
answer to that question? Can you answer that, Peter?
No, unfortunately, I can't. I'm assuming you're talking about Commons Convenience, the current operator. I was unaware that there was some signage requests made by the town.
Yes, it's what we do. We do restrict the total amount of square footage to be placed in the windows. And we had asked that everybody participate and reduce the signage in the windows and can be in compliance with the town. So that is something that I think we should request, if it hasn't been done, that you would take that and get that resolved, if in fact there is any violation.
We will agree to do that.
Great, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, John, Tom. John Cotton, any questions?
Change of ownership, same management though? Is that correct? No, actually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Peter.
I think the question was that there's a change in ownership but the same management. And no, there would be a new manager on the license, on both licenses, Dan Fortunato, who works for MPG Corporation. MPG actually controls the site. They have the master lease on the site, and we used to have this beer and wine license. And we leased it out to Commons Convenience for the last 9 years. Commons Convenience is turning the lease back in, and so we are going to corporately operate the store like we did 9 years ago. There is a new manager, and the new manager is Dan Fortunato. He's been with us for a couple of years, or just over a year.
Are you expecting any major operational changes?
No, not to start off. We are not. We do plan down the road to do a remodel of the interior of the store. But right now, there will be no change in the operation. It'll still be a gasoline station and convenience store.
Okay.
Andrew?
Nothing.
Any questions? Andrew, any questions?
No, I have no questions, Carol.
I'm sorry. Okay. And I'm all set. I just need a closed hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that.
Is there anybody here that wants to speak on this issue before we close the public hearing?
Hi, David Whedon. I am on the call. My Wi-Fi is acting up for the Zoom, but the conference line I am on, and no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, David. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Yes, second.
Roll call. Tom?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
David? David?
Yes.
And myself, yes. And now I
Madam
need
Chair,
a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the application of the transfer of the licenses in question to MPG Corporation and DBA Rapid Refill.
I'll second that motion.
And roll call. David?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you, gentlemen. You're all set.
I think you need a motion to approve the manager, Daniel Fortunato, also.
Okay.
All right, I'll amend my motion to include the transfer license and the change in manager, all as requested in the application.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Paul? David?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, 6:40, public hearing, alcoholic beverage license amendments to annual alcoholic beverage restaurant license, 25 Market Street, Inc., doing business as Cafe Trevi. Andrew, would you like the public hearing?
Yes. Pursuant to Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws, the Board of Selectmen, acting as local licensing authority for the town of Mashpee, will conduct a public hearing on the application for the following multiple amendments to the alcoholic beverage license of 25 Market Street, Inc., DBA Cafe Trevi, change of officers, directors, LLC managers, change of stock interest, change of pledge of license, stock, or inventory, and change of manager. Said hearing will be held virtually on Monday, January 24th, 2022 at 6:40 p.m. The public may participate by calling 508-539-1449. Please be advised of the following. The meeting will be virtual, remote, broadcast live on local channel 18. Call-in number 508-539-1449. Stream live on the Town of Mashpee website, mashpeemass.gov/channel 18. You may submit comments and questions via email to bos@mashpeemass.gov prior to the meeting date and time.
Thank you, Andrew. And who is here for this hearing?
I'm here. My name is Eugene Curry. I represent the applicant, Samantha Davis, who is also here on Zoom.
Hi, Samantha. Hi. Okay, so we're changing the officers and managers, stock interest, and the pledge of the license, stock or inventory, and change of manager.
That's correct.
Does anybody have any questions? Tom?
No, I don't.
Okay, Andrew.
Gene, would you mind just summarizing the changes that are at play here?
Sure. So, effective January 1st, Samantha Davis purchased the 100% interest in 25 Market Inc., doing business as Cafe Trevi. She's the 100% shareholder. She will be the sole officer, director, and she will be the manager of record. She has a long record in the industry, working in the industry, and has actually worked at Cafe Trevi doing the day-to-day management since 2015.
Thank you, Gene.
Good. Madam Chair, if I might go back, and I think I would like to ask also, I skipped it, the same as we did with the previous applicant, and that's in regards to the signage in the windows, that any signs that they be in compliance with the town bylaws. That's it.
This is a restaurant.
I know that, but there's sometimes there's lighting in there that maybe shouldn't be. So rather than hold it up just to be in compliance.
We're not aware of any issues, but if there are any compliance issues, we'll certainly resolve them.
That's it. Right. That's all I'm asking for.
We're not planning on any change from what's been in existence and approved previously.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. John?
No questions at this time.
Okay. David?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have anybody else here that wants to speak on this hearing? Okay, so...
Hearing none, Madam Chair. Hearing none.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that the staff, Terry Moore and Stephanie Coleman, were extraordinarily helpful in organizing this application, and I just want to commend the staff for their assistance.
Very nice.
Thank you.
That's nice.
Roll call. Tom?
Yes.
To close the public hearing.
Yep. So
Don?
moved.
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
David? And yes for me. Now, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to following amendments to the alcoholic beverage license, 25 Market Street, DBA Cafe Trevi, change in officer, change in stock interest, pledge of license, stock or inventory, and the change of manager, all to Samantha Davis.
Right. I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. David?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And Andrew?
Yes.
And myself. Thank you, and good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to convene a joint meeting with the Board of Health, a discussion and update with regards to the status of septic systems, cesspools, and wastewater treatment systems in town. And
I did prepare a memo, and I was wondering if you would like me to dispense with the reading and ask questions, or would you like me to do a summary? I know this is a full meeting for your board, so however you'd like me to proceed, I will.
okay, I want you to give an update of what you've given to us.
Okay.
All right.
In regards to the Santute Pond Septic Survey, at the scheduled meeting December 16th, the board voted to issue fines of $100 per day for noncompliance if a property had not been pumped or inspected, which was the order. A fine would be assessed if the pumping or inspection was not completed or scheduled by January 6, 2022. As of January 6, 13 properties were out of compliance. One property did appeal the board's order, and 12 others will receive a letter that include daily fines until compliance is met and documented by staff. The board is yet to determine the next water body to be surveyed. Considerations of the failed systems around water bodies I'll talk about in the proposed sewers. The Board of Health sewer connection regulation is in the process of being advertised, and the board will review the draft sewer connection regulation at the hearing on February 17th. As the regulation has Title V implications for innovative alternative systems and abandonment of Title V's references, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, 111, Section 31 requires a posting of the hearing for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper. The hearing date and proposed regulation will be published to meet that requirement prior to the hearing. Some of the considerations in that regulation, we've covered many of them, but some of the newer requirements that the board will discuss is providing a requirement to educate the public regarding innovative alternative technologies and their application. The education can be by public forum or information provided by the Board of Health via website or email. Innovative alternative systems will be used in different applications in the future, and these uses need to be discussed so that innovative alternative systems are more widely accepted. We'd like to add to the regulation the use of check valves on gravity sewer collection systems to prevent backups into occupied structures. And we're like to add to require new Title V design and installations to have considerations for a future connection. The town engineer can be sought to recommend any design or construction criteria that could facilitate hookup in the future. In regard to the proposed sewers and the application to failed septic systems, the board did discuss this on January 6, 2022, and they discussed strategies for addressing failed systems within Phase 1 of the sewer project. As Title V does allow extensions to be granted by the Board of Health, the board asked that newly identified failed systems located within Phase 1 of the sewer project be brought to their attention. If an extension is to be considered, a request should come from the property owner, as an agreement must be executed between the Board of Health and the owner. A boilerplate letter has been drafted notifying the owners of the failures and outlining their options to repair or upgrade the on-site systems or request an extension up to 5 years. The Sewer Commission has agreed to provide a map of the remaining 3 phases with approximate timelines for each phase. This will be critical if the Board of Health is to make informed decisions on the status of failed systems within those phases. The Board of Health is also considering whether to require all cesspools in town to be upgraded to Title V systems within a certain time frame versus whether to require upgrades to cesspools within certain phases only. These questions will be better answered upon receipt of that complete sewer map with dates for all 5 phases. The Sewer Commission did provide a map for phases 1 and 2A through 2E. Phase 1 has an anticipated completion date of 2024 to 2025, and phases 2A through 2E have a completion date of 2026 to 2027. The Sewer Commission Chair was asked if construction of phases 2A through 2E would take place simultaneously, and he indicated that the bid specifications will require that all sections of Phase 2 be constructed at the same time. That's my summary.
Okay. Who wants to start first? John?
I can start. Don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Just stop me, Madam Chair, if I get
go right ahead.
All right. So I'll start with, Glenn, if you don't mind, I'll start from page 1. So regarding the appealed member of Mashpee, that why did they appeal it? And part 2 of that question would be, of those 13 properties, is it, if they're out of compliance, is it because they haven't responded? Are they out of touch? Do you know any more details about those 13?
Yes. In regard to the appeal was due to the distance that the property was from the pond, and so they were questioning the GIS map that was used to determine the 300 feet that we utilized. So we have a response to that. We did have a board meeting, and the outcome of the hearing was to seek town council opinion, but we have another response prior to going to town council. We just will cover that at the next meeting. In regard to the other properties out of compliance, there are some properties that did not do anything, and there are some that did the inspection and didn't pump, and vice versa. There are some that pumped and didn't do the septic inspection. So any of those are considered violations of the order.
Okay.
I have one question while you're right there on these, John. Glenn, of the 7 cesspools that we have in that area, has any of those responded at all?
Yes. Yeah, all of the cesspools have responded.
And what have you decided to do with the cesspools in that area?
As of right now, the board is still considering what to do because this is in phase 2, and funding may be available as early as May, which would be within the 2-year time frame for the properties to upgrade. That they ultimately may have the ability to request an extension to tie into sewers, because sewers may be available within the 5 years. If the funding does not happen, then the board would ultimately have to have them upgrade.
And that would be in 5 years?
No, that would be within 2 years.
Okay, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
And sooner if the property sells, because of our local regulation.
All right, I'm going to jump back in, and Glenn, and first off, I should have started with this. This is just my opinion. This is not So I don't, I don't mean this as like this is what you got to do, and a lot of this is just thought. I'm thinking a lot about this, so these are just thoughts to put in your head, and that's all. On page 2 of your memo, it's the third bullet point. It's just I'm looking for a little clarity. It says require connection if the IA system has utilized to obtain more bedrooms, and where nitrogen credit was taken. So can you just explain the more bedrooms part?
Absolutely. Title V allows what's called a nitrogen aggregation plan. And in that nitrogen aggregation plan, credit land can be used within the same Zone 2 to be added in area to the parent parcel to meet the 1 bedroom per 10,000 square foot rule. So if a property had 15,000 square feet, it needed 5,000 more square feet to get the second bedroom. They could use the nitrogen aggregation plan, or the other thing that can be done is a septic, the denitrification system can also provide credit as well. And so where the innovative alternative septic system was used as credit, that means they could get additional bedrooms based upon that credit. And so that's what that bullet points, meaning that they're in a Zone 2 and that the alternative system was utilized as credit to get more bedrooms. And so that may be a case where we want that property to connect up to sewer so that the alternative septic systems have to meet a 19 milligram per liter standard, and we know that the treatment plants do better than that.
Okay, so it's an incentive to have people connect to a better system. Yeah?
I don't know if he heard you, John.
I'm sorry, John. I didn't get all that.
Is it basically just an incentive to connect to install a better system than a standard?
It is an incentive where a property can get more bedrooms. People are seeking more bedrooms. And just to clarify the Zone 2, the Zone 2 is the groundwater contribution area to a community supply well. And so there is a mapped area for groundwater that contributes to the supply well. And so there are higher standards for nitrogen treatment for septic systems within the Zone 2, and there's also that restriction of 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet of land.
John, can I ask a follow-up question on this topic since you've opened the door? Glenn, is there any thought in your proposed regulation to stop giving additional bedroom credit for dwellings that use an IA system?
Not at this point, but one thing that I'd like to mention and look at, there within the sewer bylaw, there is an allowance of a 4-bedroom maximum, and so I think that needs to be clarified, or at least explained to me further how we need to apply that, because now that Phase 1 essentially has an approved plan and financial commitment from the town, I believe the sewer bylaw would apply to that. And so to answer your first question, no, we haven't thought about not allowing them as far as the credit, but I think that there is some overlap with the bylaw that may cover that.
Well, I'd like to put on the Board of Health agenda consideration of elimination of that credit. And the reason that I think you should think about it is it undermines the value of putting in an alternative system, because the water body is concerned about the total loading from a particular house. it doesn't care that the septic system is putting things out at a lower concentration. If you allow enough additional density that you have more people in the house, you therefore offset any of the value of the benefit of higher treatment that might come from that IA system. So it seems to me that we're undercutting the value of encouraging people, or in this case, requiring people to put in IA systems if you allow them to expand the size of the house sufficiently that it consumes all or part of the benefit that comes from that IA system. So, we're trying to lower the amount of nitrogen that ends up getting to our estuaries. And so a regulatory practice that allows greater density on a given parcel actually thwarts that objective. So if we're talking about governing a set of governing rules that will govern the installation of septic systems in areas that are not otherwise in the near-term schedule for sewers, and we're telling the public we're doing this to reduce nitrogen loading, you can't keep giving additional credits for additional bedrooms on a piece of property and tell people that we're meaningfully reduce the nitrogen load associated with that home.
One question. Would you include the nitrogen aggregation plan, the use of credit land with that, or just using the IAs for credit?
I'd get rid of it all. That credit land thing is a shell game.
Okay. And I'm remembering in the sewer bylaw as well as that I believe it took a variance to get additional bedrooms beyond the 40,000 or the one bedroom per 10,000. So
that's correct. The purpose behind the sewer ordinance was that a home that is connected to the sewer can have on a 1 acre site can have a 4-bedroom house. So there's an incentive there to get people a reward, if you will, have them abandon their septic system and connect to the sewer because they have a small house that couldn't otherwise get 4 bedrooms on Title V. They can get up to that if they're connected to the sewer. But so I don't see any conflict with this at all. We're trying to encourage people to get off the septics and onto the sewer. But for those that are going to remain on septic for some period of time, and you're going to encourage them or require them to go IA, you shouldn't give them additional bedroom credit for doing so.
What do we?
Really quick.
I want to ask one more thing. When someone comes before the board because they're building a new house, what are you suggesting for what type of septic system to put in? Are there guidelines, new guidelines for this?
Well, we're still going by Title V, which...
But we found out Title V is not working, right?
If I may, this is Brian Baumgartel, Chair of the Board of Health, and if you don't mind, since I do have a quorum here, I will convene the Board of Health meeting at this time, and we'll need to close out before we're done. I think that Andrew's made or Selectman Gottlieb has made a very valuable suggestion in taking a look at those situations where we're allowing bedroom credits or nitrogen aggregation credits to occur for people to get more bedrooms on smaller lots. Just be aware of the ramifications of doing that, which people will understandably be rather upset when they have no recourse for expansion of their homes. Not saying that it's correct for them to be able to do so, but you are the elected officials in this town, so you will face probably some question on that front. The reason it has been done this way is because it's allowed in Title V, and Title V, at least from this respect, with respect to nitrogen loading, has been really implemented for drinking water purposes. It was never intended to address nitrogen loading issues and embayments, which is, it's certainly not a new problem, but it's one that we're figuring out how to address regulatorily. So I think this is probably...
Brian,
yes.
Can we agree that from an environmental regulatory point of view, Title V is an abject failure, and that we need to break out of the framework of reliance on standard Title V approaches and technology if we're worried about improving environmental water quality, not necessarily just meeting the standard for drinking water purposes?
Oh, I absolutely and wholeheartedly agree with you. And, the conference that you and I sat on today was to that effect, which is we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them because it's not effective. Title V was designed as a code that's intended to protect the public health more so than the environment directly. It's designed to take wastewater and get it away from people and get it gone as quickly as possible. It was never designed to treat nitrogen. It wasn't part of the code. So, I think it's time. I agree. It's time to start looking at these things. So I do want to put this onto our agenda and take a look at this as an option where the Board of Health can assist in this.
John, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll wait my turn now.
I can wait to go, but it's all right. All right. So I have a bunch of recommendations, but I'll kind of just whip through them. It seems to me like we're looking at phase one as it relates to time frame and potential recommendations as far as what the implications are as far as existing Title V, cesspools, and the whole thing. So I'm looking at, if you're in phase one, you're in phase two, A, B, C, or D, or E. And then there's, in my opinion, there's everybody else. So I look at that as like three different segments. That being said, one of my suggestions was taking recommended from you, Brian, and your team, and whoever, come up with 3 new innovative solutions that you would like, that you're going to say recommend. And I did speak to, I forget which town it was, but I think down Cape somewhere, they are doing the same thing. They're recommending 3 innovative solutions that the townspeople can just choose one of those, and there's some goods and bads probably with each one. So I have a selection of 3 choices for the innovative solutions, and then getting rid of Title V altogether, and then going forward, especially in that third segment, which is outside of phase 1 and phase 2, everything going forward, changing all the regs, Title V is no longer accepted in Mashpee. Another thing is the status of the cesspools. Glenn, do you have an update as far as the total number of cesspools? I know that's a painstaking amount of work to find out, but do you have a total number of cesspools in Mashpee?
No, just from the estimate, we have not gotten a chance to nail that down at all. We're still working on just doing the water bodies, never mind the whole town. So only that estimate I provided before.
So the estimate was hundreds, right?
We estimated using the 6% that we saw in Santute Pond. So town-wide, with the number of total developed properties, the estimate was 640 total in town. But again, we'd have to go through all of the files, address files, and determine how many Title V systems are in town. I believe that 94% of the town is a Title V already, and that if we use that same 6%, we come up with about 640 properties on cesspools.
All right. I hope that estimate's way off, and I hope it's very high, but if we can get to the point to actually know, it would be, I personally would love to know what the exact real number is. The other question is, and this probably relates more to the sewer commission, but as far as when we're laying all this pipe around, specifically, obviously, phase 1 and then phase 2 over the next, I think, 5, 10 years, are we working in collaboration with the DPW's plan to replace these streets to make sure that we're not replacing a street and then digging it up for sewer, 6 months later? I'm assuming everyone's going to be working collaboratively with all that?
I know that has been mentioned. But I believe you're correct. That really should be collaborative between the sewer commission and the DPW, have the town engineer, because it really is going to be based, I think, street by street. So that really needs for them to coordinate that.
I would stress urgency on phase one and get with DPW, because if that's done, I'm sure we're going to hear about it and everybody else is going to hear about it, because that would be a shame if they dig up a brand new road. Let me see. Just a recommendation. I would love to see a mandated thing with all cesspools be pumped at least once a year. They're part of phase, maybe potentially phase two. Again, you guys got great minds, put them together and come up with a recommendation, but having at least as a starter point, all cesspools in town, but specifically 1 and 2, if they're waiting for sewer, for potential sewer, if it was pumped, and I think that, talking with Andy, pumping it maybe in the first quarter, maybe prior to, spring and all things, that would be better than, so if it could be pumped early in the year, every single year until they're waiting for sewer. And if they're in phase, 3 beyond, then I would recommend, a year. They have a year to replace their cesspool. And again, at that point, it would be one of the 3 systems outside of Title V. And I have a few other things, but that's enough for me for now, unless you have some questions on what I said.
Thank you, John. Tom.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions here, and I find it bothersome. I think John's right. We should have each lot should have a pipe at their lot line provided by the town for future tie-ins if they can't do it now. But houses that have cesspools, I mean, I don't think we should be allowing them to continue using a cesspool when that's probably the biggest pollutant in the town. I feel as though we need to work with them we need to find a means to provide financing or opportunity for them to tie in at the time and eliminate the cesspool and make it a cleaner system for the benefit of all of us. And that's what it's all about. It's about clean waters and cleaner environment. I'm not saying it's easy, but if there's funding available, financing that long-term at low rates, whatever it might be, I just think now's the time we should be looking at that and coming up with solutions, not just kicking the ball down the road.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Well, the pipe at the property line, I think, would need to be done at the time if someone does repair their septic system, and we were going to include that in the sewer connection regulation, that if there is a repair done, there has to be some kind of provision to connect up in the future. And there is some funding available now to upgrade the cesspools. But when we're talking about the cesspools and Title V systems, that neither of those systems do very well with treating for nitrogen. So we'd have to look further and use alternative systems. But again, if we're going to do that, then we're back to Andy's point where we don't want to put more alternative systems in and then not have them connect up to the sewer. So there's got to be more thought on that one.
Well, maybe that's when, if they're not tying up, maybe if they do tie in, maybe we should have that additional bedroom. And if they're not going for it, then, if they're putting in a treatment system, D-night system, then they're fixed it with the number that they have, the 3 bedrooms. But, at some point, it's all about the environment. It's not about the number of bedrooms. It should be about the environment. But if it's a 4th bedroom that allows somebody to make that decision to move forward with the system without fighting it, I think that's something we need to look at. We're not talking, you know, the younger population, the number of the big families, they don't exist any longer. They really don't. I think we need to take reconsideration on the allowing an additional bedroom. It's enough to swing a person over.
Glenn, I want to ask you a question. Are you looking for guidance to make a decision on how to implement the cesspools to be gone, or do you have a plan on getting rid of the cesspools in town? I mean, this is something that we need to do, so how do you want to go about doing it?
Are you asking me, Carol?
No, I'm asking Glenn.
Okay.
Well, that is a policy decision by the board, which they have been asked before. But at this point, what we were looking for is that the map for the latter phases and phases 3, 4, and 5, because if we're going to do that, the cesspools, or even on the inspection and pumping requirements, I believe it should be done in those phases 3, 4, and 5, because if those upgrades are ordered to be done, it's properties that are going to get a full lifespan out of their systems that are installed.
When do you think that phase 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be done?
Oh, wait, hold on. There's only 3, 4, and 5 are not. I mean, right now there's a phase 1, there's a phase 2 that we're discussing, which is A, B, C, and E. 3, 4, and 5, and I stand corrected. If someone correct me if I'm wrong. 3, 4, and 5 is. I don't know if it's going to be in our lifetime, if ever.
That's right.
I mean,
so I think I think we need to concentrate on phase 1 and part of phase 2 to look at phase 2, but to concentrate right now is on phase 1.
I think, Carol, could I jump in for a sec?
Sure.
Address this question a little bit. And you've got the chair of the sewer commission on too as well. So, you know, phase 1 and phase 2, and phase 2 as it's currently envisioned, you know, on a gross level, achieves the overall nitrogen reduction that is called for in our plan. And the degree to which we need to go beyond that to 3, 4, and 5 is largely a function of the extent to which we're successful with the shellfishing program. So I think that, you know, if we are successful, as we intend to be, completing phase 1 and can launch phase 2 in this upcoming town meeting cycle, I think the Board of Health can proceed on the assumption that whatever portions of 3, 4, and 5 might be needed are far enough down the road that it warrants looking at requiring significant nitrogen reductions from septic systems to be a required element in those areas that might be served or might not be served in phases after number 2. That there's likely to be enough years between when we complete when we are talking about putting such a requirement in place and when a sewer system might service some portion of those remaining areas, that there is value in lowering the nitrogen load from the non-sewered areas through alternative septic systems. And that benefits everybody in town, and it results in, you know, almost every parcel contributing their fair share to the nitrogen reduction, whether they're connected to a sewer or whether they're connected to a innovative septic system. I would like to ask the Board of Health, as you're taking what is potentially a very big bite of the apple in updating your regulatory framework to be protective of water resources, that you look very carefully at those areas areas outside of phase 2 requiring nutrient reduction from septic systems for new construction, time of transfer, renovation, or upgrade, so that we are on track to getting conventional Title V systems out of the town of Mashpee. That you use a little bit of judgment, as you have been talking about, for those areas that are outside of phase 2 in particular, that we think, and Brian, you and I, we talked about this at some length this morning in our session, that we make sure that the technologies we're putting in place solve the problem we're trying to solve, so that freshwater systems, aren't forced to put in nitrogen-reducing systems that aren't going to benefit the freshwater environment as much as something that takes out phosphorus. But those areas down closer to Papaneset Bay, down closer to Wacoit Bay, that on our sewer map are out-year areas, be asked and required to put in alternative systems as they alter their property. And that we can, have conventional Title V systems be the rare exception rather than the norm in town. And I think, you've got an opportunity to do that now with this set of revisions, if you can expand it not that much more than what you're already thinking about. And I think you're getting no formal vote from this board, but I think you're getting a sense from the commentary here that there's a lot of support, both on the Board of Selectmen and reflecting that in general for the general populace, that wants to see us get away from conventional Title V, and that actually the politics of this are much more to your favor than they would have been a couple of years ago, where you might have faced a backlash. Now I think letting Title V be the norm will be the thing that creates the backlash, not moving on from it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just make a quick comment. What you just said, Andrew, is exactly what I've been hoping for out of the joint meetings that we've been having, is like a clear set of not marching instructions, clearly, but a good consensus on how we move forward with these things, because there's a lot of question. Now that we're getting some clarity in what the phases are going to look like, that as you've just said, if we're just going to assume phases 3, 4, and 5 at this point are so far out there, maybe they won't end up being, but if we assume that they are, then we know what we need to start to require in those areas. So that's like a piece of gold right there for us to try to develop some regulations that's going to help address this problem. So this is a fantastic conversation, and honestly, this has probably been the best 5 minutes of these conversations, because that adds so much clarity to the discussion. Thank you.
And I'm just mouthing off for me, but I hope I'm speaking for the rest of the board.
I was hoping that this is what would happen out of this meeting tonight, which is good. I think they wanted to hear what we thought and what we're thinking, and you're right, Brian.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I want to add one more.
Sure.
I also want to some type of financial assistance, and because there may be depending upon the amount of cesspools that are out there that are in phase 3, 4, 5, that just pumping once a year until they get the sewer is not in the cards. I would like to investigate other options for financial assistance, whatever that may be. Through the county, I know the county keeps saying something's going on, something might be coming. I don't believe it. I think we might have to do something take it on ourselves. But that being said, I do think we need to look at some financial assistance, because this could be hard for some townspeople to handle.
Carol,
again, we don't know.
If you'd be interested, I'd be happy to work on a little subcommittee with John and maybe some members of the Board of Health on evaluating some financing options, so that we can go to our residents and say, we know it's potentially a burden, and here's some ways that we think we might be able to mitigate that burden in a way that helps achieve, better property value through better performing property septic system, and take some of the sting out of it, upfront cost management. I think there's some options out there that can help. And if the board's willing or okay with us working on that, I'm happy to help with that.
I think that would be a great idea to do. David?
I would agree. And to further to that piece of the discussion, so as you all know, I do work for the county. The septic loan program at the county, of course, is what you're referring to, John, is that program that, we've been talking about for a little while and trying to figure out, what the interest rate looks like and so on and so forth. I recently turned in a draft report to the administration of the county outlining what the result of a lot of the analysis that we've done. And this isn't like totally wide public information, but I'm working for you too, so here we go. We're getting real close, I think, at this point. The commissioners are really chomping at the bit to get something done and in place. And I think I've come up with something that's really workable, that maintains long-term viability of the septic loan program while also offering what Andrew has really put forth, which is lowering the interest rate significantly. I've been working with the Clean Water Trust, and I think we're getting pretty close to something that's a workable solution for that. So I would expect to see that within hopefully the next couple of months, we can get that all kind of agreed and worked out. So that can play a critical role in providing assistance to those folks. I also think there could be some sort of a grant program available. I'm hopeful that we could try to put something together to find some sort of source of money, hint, hint, that would provide grants to folks who have income problems that aren't able to pay for these things on their own. So those are the things that I'm working on from the financial aspect at the county.
Very good, Brian. That's good. David?
Hi. I was wondering, I'd like to see that the cesspools are phased out as well, and and also phasing out the standard Title V moving forward. I'm not sure what the Mass General laws require and how we navigate through that if IAs aren't fully endorsed by at the state level through legislation. Reading over some of it, it sounds like if the effects of the IA system are better than your standard Title V, then they will accept them. So, I hope that we phase out, especially in the watershed areas, we increase wetland buffers and have stricter requirements within those increased watershed areas to protect the waterways. It is about the environment for me, and clean water, clean drinking water as well. As far as some of the funding issues, I don't know if, annually we usually get that mitigation money from the Cape Cod Commission. I didn't know if we did a set-aside with some of that, if there was a way to leverage that with some other source of funding as a cost share to create a fund that would help support, offset, residents that meet low-income requirements, something towards
There's a lot of different revenue streams that we can look at that might support that type of subsidy and support. Those mitigation, we took a big bite out of the mitigation money to do the design of phase one. That was the source of that design to about $500,000. So it's a little limited, but give us a little bit of time. I think there's a bunch of ways that are being looked at and ways money we can tap into that we can do something on a successful means-based test. I think part of this, is making a determination, and we don't have to do it today as a board of, whether this is financial assistance available to everybody or it's somewhat means tested. Because obviously it changed the scope of the project in a big way. We all know there are some very fabulously wealthy coastal residents, and having people across the town support and subsidize the cost of their innovative alternative system may not be the fairest thing in the world. So we need to think about that a little bit, but not tonight.
Anybody else have any questions for the Board of Health at the moment?
Would it be good to have a follow-up meeting after their February 7th meeting?
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm thinking the next meeting we should have is the sewer committee to come in and have a discussion like tonight we're having with the Board of Health, and then maybe by then COVID would be over and we could be able to have them both come in late March, early April, with all the findings. What does everybody think?
Unless I think, as a liaison to the Board of Health, I'm happy to dig in with the Board of Health a little bit, and along with Mike, the Sewer Commission, we can sort of scope this out. Tell me if I'm wrong. Do we have a general consensus on which direction we want? Along the lines of what we've talked about tonight. So if we're sort of having some more conversation, is it fair to represent that this conversation captures the majority or the unanimity of our board? In representing things to the Board of Health.
I think this meeting captures the feeling of the way we want the Board of Health to proceed, I think.
Okay. All right.
That sounds like we need a working session. We'll get our board together with just two of the selectmen or just are enough so that there isn't a quorum for you, so that we can sit down and hash out the next framework, what that looks like.
I think that would be great.
Yep. Good.
We can adjourn the joint meeting with the Board of Health.
Question, Carol.
Yes.
The Cape Cod Commission, where does it stand with advancing legislation that supports, because it's a regional problem with the Cape Cod Sands that the Title V's aren't working. Is there a way of getting the Cape Cod Commission to help advocate and lobby for regional regulatory changes?
There are a set of regulatory changes that DEP has written that move you towards nitrogen-reducing systems in watersheds like ours. And I think collectively, Title V amendments at the state level are politically charged. It's a difficult process to go through. But the regs are ready to go. And I think maybe collectively the place where our board and other boards can convey to the state is that we want to see those regs happen, because they would make it easier for the Board of Health to do what we've talked about today. Title V is a tough one. I was at DEP the last time, as was Mike. Last time Title V got amended in 1994. And there's a reason why it hasn't been updated since 1994, because it was such a miserable, painful process for everybody involved, because, you have a lot of statewide interests that don't see the issues that we're dealing with on the Cape the same way. And so they've got a good set of regs. I think you bring up a good point. A region-wide effort to encourage DEP to move forward with those regulations would be a good thing to do. So again, I'll take some lead on getting that conversation summarized, and maybe we can go through the Selectmen's Association to start promoting that and get other town boards of selectmen to sign on.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody have any other questions before we adjourn the joint meeting with the Board of Health?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. No problem. Just real quick, let me close my meeting. I would look for a motion to adjourn the Board of Health meeting. Do I still have Kripani here?
I think everybody left you.
Hello? No, I couldn't. I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not. Yes, I second that motion. Okay.
Okay. Actually, I'm just asking for the motion. I apologize for the confusion.
Yeah. So sorry. Motion to adjourn the meeting for Board of Health. Is that okay? I'm sorry, I can't.
Yep.
The voices are not coming through.
I second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Night.
Okay, communication and correspondence. Old business, New business, discussion and approval of the following appointments. The Board of Registers, Yvonne Courtney, member at large, term will expire March 31st, 2023.
I make a motion we appoint Yvonne Courtney as a Board of Registrar member at large. Term expires March 31st, 2023.
I'll second.
Second.
A roll call. John?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And yes for myself. Affordable Housing Committee, Kayla Bear, member at large, term will expire June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
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 Roll call. Tom?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you. I'm glad to see people coming into the Affordable Housing Committee. Discussion and approval of letter and opportunity of Pilgrim discharge radioactive water into Cape Cod Bay. Andrew, you asked to have this put on.
I did, and I'm crossing hats a little bit. I'm wearing my day job hat here. We at APCC have written to all 15 town boards of selectmen and the Barnstable Town Council to ask for a letter of opposition to the plans of the nuclear decommissioning company that's taking apart Plymouth nuclear power plant.
Are they having meetings on this right now, or?
There are meetings going on. Well, so the Holtec, which is the holding company, made a filing with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission back in the late fall and made it known in that they were considering discharging 1 million gallons of radioactive water to Cape Cod Bay. This water has been the cooling water that's been cooling the spent fuel rods. They've moved the spent fuel rods from wet storage to dry storage. They now have 1 million gallons of radioactive water with no technological option to treat it other than to dump it in the bay. And so they notified the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of their intent to do so. It became public. They got a cascade of negative response and have backed off for at least the calendar 2022. And they say they're going to look at what their options are. This letter is intended to let the world know that each one of the 15 towns thinks that dumping radioactive wastewater into Cape Cod Bay is a bad idea. And I would hope we would join that chorus.
Okay,
pretty easy one, people.
It is. Have a motion.
I make a motion that we send the letter.
I'll second this letter.
Okay. Roll call. David?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And myself. Andrew will be excluded. Thank you, Andrew, for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you for sending the letter.
Okay. Additional topics. I'm going to turn this one over to Town Manager Rodney Collins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You should have a memo relative to deficit spending in terms of snow and ice, as I'm sure the board is well aware. Snow and ice account for intentional purposes is very low in terms of the line item. So there should be a memo that you received from the DPW director, and as a result of that memo and this being unanticipated, I would respectfully request that the board, make a motion to attach it to the agenda, and B, to take a vote on the deficit spending on the snow and ice account, consistent with the director's request.
Okay, do I have a motion to add it to the agenda?
Yes.
Do I have a second? Okay, Andrew?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And myself, yes. And do I have a motion to add it to the deficit?
So moved.
Second?
Yes.
Roll call.
Yes.
David? John?
Yes. David Reed.
Okay. Tom?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you, Rodney.
Okay, I have another item, Madam Chair, regarding unanticipated.
Yes.
As yourself and Selectman O'Hara are aware, we did have a meeting with the county official that was designated to sit down and meet with us relative to the ARPA funds. And as you're well aware, because you were at the meeting, the suggestion was for this board to consider making a recommendation to the county to disperse the funds that were earmarked for the town of Mashpee. Now, there is some debate, and I think the debate, based on our knowledge, is between the commission and the delegation, but without getting into that end of things, there are a lot of towns that are simply looking for these funds to be dispersed in proportion of the numbers that were earmarked for specific towns. And obviously, we've got wastewater front and center, and that's one of the items that these funds can be used for. So I have requested town council to draft a letter. That is a work in progress. I was hoping to have it for this meeting, but I don't, Madam Chair, because he was tied up in court. But I do anticipate it within a day or two. So number one, I would ask that the board consider adding this to the agenda, and I would respectfully request that the board authorize me to sign and send on behalf of the board or in support of the board's position to recommend what I just discussed to the county.
Do I have a motion to add?
We include the item.
Second. Yeah.
Roll call. John?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
David?
David Reed, yes.
And myself. Thank you. Yes.
And then need a motion to support letter being sent to the county, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's a
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call. David?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
John?
yes.
And myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Liaison reports.
Actually, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, one more thing. Mr. Collins, if you can just relay, I want to commend DPW. There were a couple incidences where there was not necessarily snow, but turned into some rain and some black ice. But the roads were amazingly salted when, you know, it was all about safety, and it wasn't about, you know, save off, you know, don't salt until snow actually falls. So the roads in Mashpee were amazing, and I had no incidents of black ice.
I agree with that assessment, and I have received compliments relative to the job that DPW did, and it's nice to publicly recognize it.
Yes, it is. Anyone else with liaison reports?
Nope. Fine.
Okay, town manager updates.
The only thing I have, Madam Chair, is we did have 42 new positive COVID-19 cases over the weekend. That brings the total now up to 127. 15 cases did move out of isolation. And the Board of Health did issue a townwide mask advisory, not a mandate advisory. And that's all I have for right now.
Okay.
One more thing, Madam Chair. and maybe it's a question for Andy too, point of order, do we need a motion to approve the working group of Andy and I for that? There's no. Okay.
I don't think you do. It's up to you.
I don't think you do, John. I think it was just among us. It's only two members.
Okay.
No vote. No vote. It gives you plausible deniability if you don't like what we come up with.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Roll call. John.
Yes. Yes.
David.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
And myself. Good night, everybody.
And happy
Thank
belated
you.
birthday to Selectman Whedon.
Yes, happy 50th.
Happy birthday,
Happy
dear.
birthday.